history, to hear submissions from the public on matters listed for consideration at this meeting, and to also hear submissions on general matters. And the other public forum session will be held prior to confidential matters and will consider submissions from the public on matters considered by council at this meeting only. All councillors undertook an oath or affirmation at the beginning of their term of office and declared to undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interests of the people of the Broken Hill local government area, the city of Broken Hill, and that they will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in them under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of their ability and judgment. This council meeting is being live streamed via YouTube and recorded and published online via council's website. To those present in the meeting today, by participating in the public meeting, you are consenting to your image, voice and comments being recorded and published. The Mayor and/or General Manager have the authority to pause the live stream if comments or debate are considered defamatory, otherwise inappropriate for publishing. Participants advise that they may be subject to legal action if they engage in unlawful behaviour or commentary. We have nil apologies, nil leave of absence. Call on Councillor Boland to deliver the prayer.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. Almighty God, we ask you to invoke your blessing upon this council, direct and prosper our deliberations to the advancement and true welfare of the people of the council area, our state and Australia. Amen.
Amen. Councillor Gallagher.
Yes, I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, the land of the Winnicarli people, and pay our respect to those elders past, present and emerging.
Councillor Chandler.
We take time to reflect, remember and honour the over 800 miners that lost their lives and those that were crippled or maimed on the line of load. We thank the brave miners and their wives who were part of the 1920 strike that lasted over 500 days and delivered a 35-hour working week. Mining is our past and our future.
Thank you, councillors. Public forum session. The first public forum session of 15 minutes will consider submissions from the public regarding matters listed for consideration at this meeting and also on general matters. The public have been advised through notices in the BD, the Barrier Truth, on council's website to register by 4 p.m. today if they wish to address council during the public forum session. Members of the public who have registered to address council will be given preference, and then if time permits, anyone else present in the public gallery may address council. Speakers are allocated 2 minutes. We received nil registrations. Do we have any members of the public that would like to speak? Bob, Mr. Cools. Thank you, Mr. Tools. You'd like to speak on that, Jay? No. Just for everyone, so that was in William Street, so we had to wait till we got approval through the RMS. Yeah. Yep. We've just got one in Iodide Street we have to carry. Any other speakers? No. Item number 8 is minutes for confirmation. Do we have a councillor move the minutes?
Move the minutes.
Move councillor Allgate, seconded councillor Turley. Councillor Allgate, you wish to speak to those?
No, everything's fine as far as I'm concerned.
Councillor Turley.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to acknowledge in following your mayoral minute that Christine Adams had actually won that award. And so just wanted to recognise that the, I think it was the Community Achievement Award for Individual Excellence in Crown Land. I think in the minutes you recognised and congratulated.
If you'd like during the meeting, you can move something to acknowledge it, Councillor Turley. All those in favour of the minutes? Carried unanimously. Item number 9 is disclosures of interest. Any councillors have any disclosures? Nil disclosures. Item number 10, nil mayoral minutes. 11, nil notices of motion. 12, nil rescission motions. 13 is a report from Councillor Marion Brown. Verbal.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity to give a fairly last minute verbal report. This is on a recent meeting, an online meeting of the Murray-Darling Association Region 4. And the reason I wanted to mention it specifically is that this council has always been concerned about at water matters, specifically, Darling River water matters. And at this meeting, Councillor Turley also attended. There was a presentation on, well, really the current state of the Darling and water issues generally. And it was, we were told that extraction rates are actually growing in the north. After that, the ABC, the Four Corners report a few years ago, I think we all assumed that things would be in hand and, those excesses would go. And it seems that they're not at all. Ownership of the water in the northern basins being sort of centralised into, so that now there are only 4 or 5 owners who have enormous amounts of water. Those, as I said, those extraction rates are increasing, and it's without a doubt that the fact that the Darling is no longer always connected is due to over extraction and not decreased rainfall as a matter of climate change. So it is a matter of concern. The no pump, no rule, the no meter, no pump rule seems to not to be really policed. So it does appear that the river's in a fairly dire state, and given that those water resource, the sharing plans are still not finalised, and particularly I think the buybacks is a live issue. I think it's something that maybe we should be we should get an update on via a workshop or something like that. This report to us was given by the Slattery and Johnson, but I'm sure that's not the only source, but it was certainly we haven't been given slides from that presentation. I don't know whether we will, but I found it a very interesting and concerning, really, presentation. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Yep.
Councillor Brown, maybe a lot of that's been answered now from that from the Greens participating in it and the signing off of it during the week of the new agreement. I don't know.
Oh, yes, I'm not sure, but I think the whole gist of this report is it seems as I think people thought that all of these matters were solved, but it doesn't appear that they are, and there's still outstanding issues of I suppose policing what was legislated after that ABC report. I think it's worth getting an update on that. And I don't know whether the water buybacks will be an issue in the Northern Basin and affect the Darling. I don't know what's going to happen there, but I don't know enough about the implications of what's been recently signed since that. But given that the MDA meeting was about the 10th of this month, or no more than a couple of weeks ago, it's fairly recent.
Would you like to move a motion, Councillor Brown, just to say that a report be prepared for the next council meeting? We'll send off correspondence outlining some of the things that are being brought up.
Yep.
The general manager will put something together, and also that your report be received.
Happy to move that.
Seconded, Councillor Turley. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Uh, 14, Works Committee. Item number 1 is adoption of the draft Broken Hill Airport Master Plan.
We move that way.
Deputy Mayor, seconded, Councillor Allgate, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Kennedy. This is mainly for the public gallery and for live stream, because councillors all were involved in a workshop on the some time back on the master plan. it's a really great plan. It spreads over a period of 15 years to get it all complete, but it'll be done in stages and as money becomes available. There was 2 submissions from the public, which I think we can answer, or that will be answered fairly well. One was about, could we do it in stages when the money comes, and was in as part of the plan. The other one was about access for the ambulances and things like that, which I'm sure will be covered under the plan pretty well. And I think General Manager would have that. But other than that, it's a pretty good draft, and move that it goes ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Any other councillors? Councillor Allgate?
I support what the Deputy Mayor has just said, but in addition, I'd like to say that of all the master plans I've seen, and I think I can recall 3, this being the 3rd, I think the last one is 2008, as mentioned in the report. I thought it was a very professional report, and the fact that it included the business plan, a comprehensive business plan, means that the council is basically ready to seek grants for any work that's proposed at the airport. And this report tends to indicate that we have a good case to upgrade the runway as a priority.
Yeah. Look, the difference between this master plan and other master plans, it really is a working document. What the documents there is, the first thing is we do the taxi and runway, taxi and aprons, which has already been planned and will start construction next year. But beyond that is really to strengthen the runway so that we can take 737s. Once we do that, the rest of the plan will come into existence, particularly with a shortage of industrial land around the city. So there's an opportunity out there because that is freehold. So this is more than just another master plan that will sit on the shelves of the council building. We can pull out in 10 years and say nothing happened. I have no doubt. Well, not only do I have no doubt, we know that there is some parts of that plan that will start straight away. We've already got the 10 million for the aprons and taxiways. Without a doubt, the government's very, very interested in upgrading the runway, and I have no doubt that we'll get contributions from the federal, state, and possibly private contributors. Mining is becoming more important in the region, but there could be the opportunity for other developments, particularly manufacturing with batteries and other areas like that. Any other comments? Councillor Turley?
No, absolutely welcome the master plan, and it's got a strategy to go forward. Just a short-term opportunity, and can we congratulate the new leaseholders on their cafe opening out at the airport? But just a short-term, maybe a small low-hanging fruit that we could achieve is looking at some of our parking issues out there in the immediate future. I think this would complement the plan. I know that, there's always, I never had trouble parking, but a lot of other people are posting about that. So I hope that we'll take it on question on notice for the next meeting.
Yeah, no need for a question on notice. So we will add a number 5, a letter of appreciation to the leaseholders at the cafe if the mover's happy with that, and the seconder happy with that, Councillor Allgate. The General Manager will explain because there already is plans out there for parking, and that's been ongoing with particularly the General Manager, myself and the Deputy Mayor, and meeting with the stakeholders out there. If you'd just like to give some of the details.
Thanks, Mayor Kennedy. We have put in some plans in place which are detailed in the master plan, meeting with the hire car companies over the last few months. Obviously, they're taking up a lot of car spaces, and the public are not getting as many as they require. And we do have that temporary car park halfway down Pro Hart Way. So the plan moving forward is, now that the airport master plan's about to be adopted, and that's what we're waiting for, is that the back section of the car park that councillors would be aware of, where the shrubbery is, will actually be cleared, and that'll be converted into a larger car parks as well. The car rental companies will have designated car spaces within that car park itself, but it will free up around another 40 to 60 car spaces in that back area, which should alleviate a lot of those concerns. And also part of the master plan will be to have a walking path from the temporary car park out the front of the Flying Padres hangar as well, just to make that a bit safer than it currently is. Thanks, Mayor Kennedy.
Thanks, Mr. GM.
And also extra lighting, as well as what was explained, and I'm sure all councillors are very aware, the limited amount of taxis out there. So it's very important that those hire cars do remain out there so that people get access to those vehicles without having to get taxis into town. So it was really important that council actually did what one of the first actions is that car park, and as is detailed in the master plan. So those discussions have been going on for a number of months. Councillor Allgate.
Could I ask a question, Mayor Kennedy? I noticed in the report there's a suggestion that the Nomad be relocated. Is there already a location decided, or is it still up in the air?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kennedy. No location's been decided. It will be impacted with the alternate routes. They'll be longer term in the master plans. There won't be anything in the near future, but when those plans do come through to fruition, we'll have make sure we have conversations with the Royal Flying Doctor Service about appropriate location for the Nomad, but obviously we'll still have a prominent position within the airport precinct. Thanks, Mayor Kennedy.
Thank you, General Manager. Thank you, Councillor Allgate. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item number 2 is the minutes of the Picton Nova Sports Ground Community Committee meeting held October 16. We have a mover for that.
Move that way.
Move Councillor Gallagher, seconded Councillor Jewett. Councillor Gallagher, you'd like to speak to that?
No, as well before us, Mayor Kennedy.
I do regularly still hear that the Picton Oval grounds is always the best to run around on. So if you pass that, please pass that on to the committee, that the people still brag the Oval up considerably.
Be a pleasure.
All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Health and Building Committee, item number 1 is the Albert Kirsten Mining and Minerals Museum Geos Collection. Deputy Mayor Hickey.
Yeah, move that way.
Seconded.
Second.
Councillor Jewett, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Kennedy. It's most important that we have a good management committee for the Geo Centre and for our collection of minerals. I know that in certain other towns and things like that, where minerals and that go missing, you've got to have a really good sequence of how they're handled, who handles them, and documentation, and this all forms part of that. And I think it's most important for our city that we have our collection looked after and make sure that there's nothing happens with it. Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Yes, I have a question about the miners' cottage. I couldn't see a mention of that. I mean, originally that was, and as far as I'm aware, and I do acknowledge that Mr. Don Moody's in the gallery, but the miners' cottage has been up till the last few years, when it's kind of been put into recess, I suppose, pending the repairs by the National Trust, the local branch of the National Trust, which is really because of loss of most of its membership has sort of also gone into recess. But I think it's an important part of social history, and it doesn't really seem to be covered by the plan of management. So I suppose I just have a general question about how its future is seen, and whether that will be incorporated in this plan of management, or whether that's just going to be about the mineral collection and the main building. Because I do think it's an important thing to maintain. It's had a lot of it has had a lot of interest over the years. I know Mr. Moody, for one, has spent many hours taking people around and explaining the significance. A lot of those the items that are in the cottage or were in the cottage. So it's just a general question and expression of some concern that it does have a future there.
Yeah. So yes, Councillor Brown. So there has been discussions, and do know that it's a national trust, and it was spoken about just with the synagogue, how the National trust or whoever was in charge of that at the time ended up, or the trustees, I should say, not the National Trust, but the trustees did pass it over to the Historical Society so that it could continue operation. I know that your members I think you're a member of the National Trust, Councillor Brown.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
I'm still a member, but
Yeah.
there is not really at the moment a functioning local
Yeah.
branch.
So we were thinking as a council, and it up to council, but I think at some stage council might have to take over the operations of that. And of course, it'd have to be the National Trust doing offering that on. But I believe that it's too important a building not for to be incorporated into the overall plans of the Geo Centre. It's something that was discussed that there was concerns that people could be hurt and all that sort of stuff, but council could mitigate a lot of those concerns by having areas that they couldn't touch, but areas they could access, because I know during the time it was a well visited part of that. So perhaps if you come up with some plans or whatever, we may be able to put that under council's administration and get that back in as the overall part of the Geo Centre.
I'd certainly be happy to talk outside this meeting, perhaps, and with the Mr. Moody's a member, and I understand that Simon Molesworth is he's certainly a member, and there are other members around town, but it doesn't function as a local branch at the moment. But I think there needs to be some more discussion. I'd be happy to be part of that.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kennedy. Just to just for some clarity, so the actual, going back to your first point, Councillor Brown, that is just around managing the collection as opposed to a management strategy of the broader Geo Centre. That being said, the Miners Cottage is a fundamental part in the draft Albert Kirsten Mining and Mineral Museum Geo Centre master plan that's currently being prepared at the moment. So it is in the draft stages. In all 4 of the options that will be presented to council for a public exhibition in the near future, that cottage is a fundamental part of it, that it is renovated and kept as a part of the centre and as in the precinct. And then obviously we'll have some of those ownership things we'll have to move with, but it is certainly in the plan. Thanks, Mayor Kennedy.
Thank you, General Manager. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item number 2, minutes of the Friends and Flora. Councillor Brown, I'd like to move that.
Yes.
Any comments? I suppose the only thing is that we did get a bit of a presentation from the service review. So they did look for some of the things that so councillors that may not have been attended or members of the general public, any things where you think that the barrier ranges or the sculptures or the living desert can improve. Councillor Brown?
Yes, I'd certainly agree. It's a very successful
Yes, very
355
successful.
committee. It's probably the happiest 355 committee that I've been on. It does work well, and I think one of the secrets is that the council staff and the committee work together. There's absolutely no separation, so that the committee doesn't sort of operate by itself and complain about the council. It's one very integrated group. So it is certainly at the moment working very well. The other thing I'd like to note from these minutes is that they're 2 of the long-standing members of that committee have recently resigned from the committee, after I think at least 10 years service. So just, like to acknowledge that. I think
You want to add that at number
there
3?
are, yes, I'd like them, to be thanked, Mr. and Mrs. Spielvogel.
Probably the other thing. Oh, sorry, Councillor Jewett.
I'll second.
Yeah, you second that? All right. The other thing that I suppose is important is we only have 1 councillor on that committee. So if another councillor would like to
I'm
nominate,
happy to go on it.
yeah, happy to go on it. All right.
Yeah, I was on it for quite some time, so
Yeah, I'm
happy to go back on it.
All right. We'll add that to it. We'll add that to it. Any councillor Turley to be the second committee member? Councillor Jewett, did you like to speak, or you just second it? All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item number 1 is apologies in general committee. Item number 1 is the draft annual report. Councillor Deputy Mayor Hickey,
Yeah, I'll move.
seconded.
Seconded.
Councillor Allgate.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Kennedy. And I will read on a part of this. Is the annual report is the council's report to the community and reports on council's achievements in implementing its delivery program and disability inclusion action plan, and the effectiveness of the principal activities undertaken in achieving the objectives at which those principal activities were directed during the preceding year. So it is an advice to the public as to where council's up to. It's quite a good draft. Some of the major achievements, we got achieved a fixed cost contract for the construction of the new library to commence early 2024. We met with numerous on occasions with the architects and end up with getting a design and build, which would to fit within our budget, and it's a fixed cost, which is a great achievement. New wayfinding and directional signage is just about completed, and it looks pretty good around the parks and things like that. It looks great, and it's a good thing for the city. O'Neill Sporting Complex. Well, there's been a bit of difficulty there with costs and all that, and blowout with costs, which is nobody's fault besides, I suppose, the nation. But that's coming together and should start in the early new year. Construction of the airport upgrades to commence fairly shortly, with the $10 million featuring our new aprons and that, so which is great for our master plan and everything, and really good achievement for the city, and $10 million goes a long way there. And it's great to have the operation of the cafe open again, which is a really good thing. Sure. Thank you.
Any other councillors?
I
Councillor Allgate.
I concur with what the Deputy Mayor has said. And even though it's a long report, it's a report that specifically identifies what the council has done. It also points out what the council hasn't done, that it planned to do, and why. Naturally, we all understand the problems that have been with supply and the unbelievable cost of materials during that period. But having said that, the report gives the community the opportunity to see exactly what over the 12-month period, what the council has done, what it intends to do in the future, and its vision. And I think it's a really good report. Lengthy, but still good.
Definitely. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item number 2 is Local Government Remuneration Tribunal Review for 2024 Annual Determinations.
I'll move that as written.
Councillor Boland, seconded. Councillor Jewett. Councillor Boland.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. This is a submission that needed to be done. Just having some computer problems. It's a submission that needed to be done. It's ridiculous that the government sets certain boundaries or certain figures, so you can go from A to B in the figures to work out where the council's fees come into the picture. The government really needs to be setting them once a year and based off what the council does, that kind of thing. So instead of giving a rate of fees, they really need to home in on what the fee will be exactly, and as the submission says, based off the activities of the council and how big the council area is, etc. It's just ridiculous that they expect us to vote on our own fees each year. We did the survey, and obviously it came back that the community didn't want to see that. So the government really needs to step in and make sure there's transparency in how the fees are set, and not just one a band, basically.
Thank you, Councillor Boland. Any other councillors? Councillor Jewett.
Yeah, just to agree with Councillor Boland and reflect, yes, the comments are made at the standing committee meeting that gap what they set was way too wide, and no matter what amount we chose, the effect would be negative. Whether we chose too high, it's negative to the community. If we choose too low, then it's not going to encourage new people to join council or want to give it a go. So I think this is a good policy.
Councillor Allgate.
I think, thank you, Mayor Kennedy. In simple terms, it's my view that the councillors should never be responsible for making their own councillor allowance. That's just stupidity as far as I'm concerned. The government remuneration tribunal set the income for state and federal government. Why can't they do the same for local government?
Thank you, councillor Allgate. Any other councillors? No. All those councillors in favour? Carried unanimously. Item number 3 is draft public interest disclosure policy for public exhibition. Mover for that. Move councillor Chandler, seconded. Councillor Jewett, councillor Chandler.
I just think the way this is well written and it's very understandable, and I think it's good policy to follow.
No worries. Any other councillors? All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item number 4 is the quarterly budget review statement for the period ended 30th September.
I'll move that
Councillor
way.
Boland, seconded.
Second.
Councillor Allgate, councillor Boland.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. Basically, well, coming off the annual report, obviously we go down to the quarterly budget reviews, which I note are being done a lot more thorough in the post-COVID era, in the current economic climate, where there's a lot of headwinds in the economy. But basically, there's some good results, or what we've got coming up in the results. So some insurance recovery, reduction in expenses from the councillors, declining the 3% increase, some increase in grant funding, the expenditure for the Geo Centre. So it's got everything in there. And it also got the capital budget results and what the budget will go to, such as the Living Desert, some generator replacement, some improved or replacement of fire equipment at other council assets. So everything's in there. It's a good report, flows in well from the annual report to a more broken down quarterly report. And if the community wants to know what the council's doing, this is a great report to have a look into. But the community should be comfortable that the councillors and the staff have got their fingers on the pulse and are doing a wonderful job managing council's financial assets in what is challenging times in this post-COVID-19 pandemic and worsening political and economic conditions. So well done to all involved in this report.
Thank you, councillor Boland. Councillor Allgate.
No.
Oh, your microphone's
No,
on. Councillor Brown.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a question on the rate of outstanding rates. And I know that was brought up at the Audit and Risk Committee as well. And the figures don't quite seem to mesh, but it seems that we are still above the benchmark for that. And I note in the comments, I couldn't attend the Audit and Risk meeting, but I did note your comments, Mr. Mayor, that some of the issues that were affecting that. But I suppose my general question is, are we on track to achieve a benchmark, sometime, in the near future? If not, are there issues that we should be aware of that keep the rate of outstanding uncollected rates still a bit high? Is it cost of living pressures, or is it something else?
Yeah, so I'll answer and pass to the general manager. So the cost of, everyone knows Broken Hill, we do have it when cost of living pressures do hit. People will pay the things they can get out of paying last. That's what's happened with council rates in the past. Without putting people under too much pressure, council was developed a policy where it won't allow ratepayers to get too far behind. That will also allow for sale of land for unpaid rates earlier than what it normally would, which in most cases it allows people to pay their rates out and get back on top of their finances. What was said last time, a lot of people were happy that it was done because it caused them to address something that they were missing. So councillors did pass that, which will allow that, which will keep those numbers down. The other thing that we did do was pass that rate collection, which allows more reminder notices so that people can keep it on track. The general manager's also open to hardship payments, which is hopefully will reduce that, but I'll hand over to the general manager just to give more detail.
Thanks, Mayor Kennedy. Yes, so we won't meet the benchmark. Benchmark's 10%. We haven't met that for a number of years. The current indicator of 18.8% outstanding is a timing issue, given it's the first quarterly report. So we did close the year off in 2022-23 with about 11% outstanding rates, which was a considerable reduction from the previous year as a result of the sale of land for unpaid rates. The sale of land for unpaid rates process will be a 2-year process now, so it should be council will be in a position that it can keep on top of its outstanding rates. But from your very first question, we are seeing the pressure, cost of living pressures with the number of payment arrangements people are starting to make the council in not being able to meet those first instalment and second as we're coming up to the second instalment notices. So there is a real pressure that we're still seeing post-COVID on the community with being able to make those rate payments. And again, if the real priority is that we can speak to the community about those hardship applications and getting payment arrangements in place, as opposed to not doing anything about it and ending up in that sale of land for unpaid rates. But at the moment, the strategy is to continue working with them to make sure the rates are paid and continue with the sale of land for unpaid rates on a biannual process for those blocks of land that we're trying to obviously free up where people just don't want to pay rates anymore. Thanks, Mayor Kennedy.
For you.
Yeah, Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, can I just ask the general manager? I've had a lot of complaints again lately about that our last collection agency, that they're still getting letters in the mail from them quite regularly. When does that stop?
I'll take that on notice, Mayor Kennedy.
No worries, General Manager. Just a bit of good news for the public. So council was forecast to spend or projected to net capital budget expenditure of $30 million on capital. That'll include things like the library, the O'Neill complex development and other things. So that's really good. That's a lot of money to be spent. People should start to notice some real improvements in the city. The other really good thing from a council perspective, but also a community perspective, is that it be noted that we're projected to have an operating surplus before capital of $129,000. So that'll be a good effort from all involved. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item number 5 is investment report for October 2023. Councillor Boland.
I'll move that way.
Seconded. Councillor Gallagher. Councillor Boland.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. Looking good again. Obviously, the interest rates being high. We're speaking about cost of living pressures. Obviously, the term deposits and stuff like that is going up. The investment looks good. I note that the inflation figures come in a bit lower today. I think they came in, headline inflation came in around 4.9, which was a lot lower than they expected. They believe the US has stopped their interest rates going up, so the Australian dollar is strengthening, which will hopefully bring down inflation and take a bit of pressure off everybody. Will take a bit of pressure off the economy, but ultimately council's money's in a good position and being well looked after.
Thank you, Councillor Boland. Any other speakers? All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item number 6 is the minutes of the audit and risk
Move the
improvement.
recommendation.
Moved, Councillor Allgate, seconded. Deputy Mayor Hickey. Councillor Allgate.
The minutes, as far as I'm concerned, I was in attendance and I think the minutes reflect exactly what has transpired. And it's pleasing to note that over the period that the audit and risk Improvement Committee have been meeting, there have been significant improvements across the board in the council's exposure to potential and real risks. And I think that, that's something that's quite valuable. And still work to do. There'll always be work to do, but we're nearing the point where council is operating very, very risk-free.
Thank you, councillor Allgate.
Uh,
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, Mayor Kennedy, look, the other night was speaking to the insurers and they were saying to about Scott Howe and his team that would be in the top 5% of councils in New South Wales for the way they operate and how they've got it in line. So it was a really good conversation and very pleasing to hear.
Would you like to put that down as a number 3, that it'd be acknowledged that
I would if we acknowledge the
council is in the top
team.
5%?
Yep. Thank you.
Only on opinion, but
Yeah.
still matters. We'll take it when we can. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item number 7, re-establishment alcohol-free zones. Moved councillor Jewett, seconded councillor Gallagher. Councillor Jewett.
These zones are well established and obviously they're to protect the community. If had my way, they'd be expanded, not reduced. And yeah, they're
Councillor
to-
Gallagher, you always like to have a.
Yes,
on
I'd
this
like
one.
to reiterate the comments of councillor Jewett. These are well-established alcohol-free zones. It's for the comfort of the general public. That's for the fear that alcohol-related crime does not increase in that area. It's good to see that we've reinforced it and we're going back to what we were before and the signs are being replaced. So it's good to see. So I think it's a good move for the community and also for the visitation of Broken Hill.
Thank you, councillor Gallagher. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, just again, a question. I note there was a comment from Marima about, a couple of those proposed zones and the response to that there'll be communication between council and that organisation. I'm just asking, whether there's been a meeting about that, before this goes through, or whether there's something planned, or what will what will happen at that.
I'll get the general manager, councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. I'll refer to our Director of Corporate and Community. Thank you.
Yes, I was in touch with the CEO of Marimar and did offer to have a particular meeting around this matter. We have not, and I was to await his response. He has not responded. So in the meantime, I went back and had a look at back in 2018 about the level of consultation that did occur, and it was quite incredibly wide. And in particular, wanted to see what was the position of Marimar at that time. And they wrote a letter in support of the proposal from community members residing in Creedon Street to make it an alcohol-free zone. And I do believe that Richard Weston, who's the current GM, also wrote this letter.
All right. Okay.
So I will be in touch with him and follow up.
Just at the number 10, could we have that noted? I think it's an important part of that. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item number 8, for the appointment of community representatives to section 355 Ridderford Arboretum Community Committee. Do we have a mover for that? Moved councillor Turley, seconded councillor Brown. Councillor Turley? No worries.
It's good to see
That is good
community
to see.
nominations.
Yeah, for sure. All those in favour? Carried unanimous. Item number 9 is for the appointment of community representatives, section 355, Friends of the Flora and Fauna, Barrier Rangers, Community Committee. Councillor Brown, move that. Seconded. Councillor Turley, speak to that, Councillor Brown? No. I do note that in there it did acknowledge send a letter off to the, yeah. Item number 10 is nomination for the appointment of the community representatives to the Section 355 E.T. Land Memorial Oval Committee.
Move that way.
Moved councillor Gallagher, seconded councillor Jewett. Councillor Gallagher.
It's good to see Scott's come aboard and welcome.
Another good oval with good playing surface.
Yeah, it's a good playing service and it's an area over the south where people can just go and kick a ball around or to do what they can to do the recreational out there. So it's good to see.
Thank you, councillor Gallagher. Item number 11, all those in favour, sorry, passed unanimously. Item number 11, minutes of the Broken Hill Heritage Committee meeting held.
Move that way. Mr. Mayor.
Moved councillor Turley, seconded
Second that.
Deputy Mayor Hickey. Councillor Turley.
Sorry, just having trouble with my computer. Just wanting to recognise the resignation of Gary Cook, and we thank him for his service to the committee and wish him well.
Thank you, councillor Turley. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is probably part for information for myself because I'm not really sure about how this operates, but I was at the meeting last week with the railway station restoration proposal, which is not on council land it's on railway land, and the area is around in Crown land, not ours either. And there was full, a full review of it done by our heritage advisor. Are we charged for that? Do they charge us for that?
For the review, we pay for the services of the heritage advisor who maps out some of those issues that are. Oh, sorry, did you want to talk to the mayor? Or?
No, I think she's just asked. Were you asking?
Yeah, it's really asking.
Sorry.
Sorry, councillor Turley. No, General Manager.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Not for that specific work. She's obviously paid for her services in general, but subject to council's resolution to proceed through with a full master plan. There was no additional charges for the mud map she drew up. Obviously, the time that she was at the attendance for the councillor briefing would be charged in her hours that she was spending in Broken Hill for her time, but not actually for the mud maps. Anything further was subject to that council resolution moving forward with a full master plan. Thanks, Mayor Kennedy.
Thank you, General Manager. Any further questions? No. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item number 1 from further reports is correspondence report reclassification of the Broken Hill aged care facilities. We have a councillor Allgate.
Move the recommendation as written.
Seconded, councillor Jewett. Councillor Allgate, you'd like to speak to that?
Only to say that I'm a bit disappointed about the response. It looks like if you're classified as M3, that's triple M3, that's exactly where you stay, no matter what. And whilst it might be okay to say there's top-up grants, I'm not so sure that will overcome the problem that's being experienced locally. I mean, time will tell, but one would think that individual cases in remote areas would be given the consideration that they're worth. And I don't feel that this response does that.
No, look, I would like to have been reclassified in between the time. I think more or less what he's saying is there will be an opportunity in 26, is it? Something like that. So we have a little time to wait, and they're probably, well, I would say likely will be reclassified, but the problem is the time in between. What is, I suppose, some cause to celebrate, even though not what we want, is that it will allow our classification of 3 to get funding up to that 5. So if you would, Councillor Allgate, is to add to that we do write back to them and say that it's essential that Broken Hill does receive that additional top up of money to ensure that we do continue to operate, because there's a very good chance that here in Broken Hill, not only are we not using all the beds we're allocated, there's a very good chance that we could potentially, because we're not financially viable, because we're not using our full licenses, that we may end up having to close, and then the government would be in all sorts of problems, and so would Broken Hill.
happy to include that.
Councillor Jewett.
Yeah, with this, it was a bit of a mixed with the responses that didn't quite marry up. Obviously 26 is a long time away, and even those grants, I thought that was quite positive. I still think time's the enemy here. And that's based on, if we get reclassified based on them finishing this pricing scope, which could drag on as well. So yeah, if we can rush this funding to fill the gap, we shoot for that.
Councillor Turley.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and I've a little croaky voice tonight, so forgive me. Look, I just noted that the federal government announced establishing the Working Better for Medicare review. I think it was announced last week, but particularly in that, and it's looking at the critical lack of access to doctors in regional rural Australia, but they noted that there's three main policies that will be under that review, and that includes the Monash modified model. And I think with that, we really need to be on top to make sure we put our submissions in as soon as they call for them. Because this, you know, it's once in a lifetime, the fact that the government has said the Monash modified model doesn't meet its purpose. And so if we're looking at this change, we need to be really active in putting our submissions in. The other part is that
We'll add we'll add a number 6 to that. Councillor Allgate, Councillor Jewett,
Certainly.
outlining Councillor Turley's comments. Councillor Turley.
Yeah.
please continue.
the other part is that I can't remember if it was last month's meeting or the one before, where excuse me for a minute, Mr. Koff said that they had actually closed beds at the nursing home or the aged care centre. Do we know if those beds have reopened? Do we know what the status is of the beds?
I'll just pass to the general manager. Some have, but not near enough, and it's only as nurses have been made available.
Yeah,
General
thank you, Mayor
Manager.
Kennedy. Yeah, as the Mayor just said, then there has been some reopening of beds, but there is still a major nursing shortage, which does require the closure of some of those beds in those facilities. The member for Parks, Mr. Coulton, when he was in town over the weekend, did make the acknowledgement that it is getting closer in regards to funding, and that there should be an announcement made shortly, and he's hoping that will happen prior to Christmas. Thanks, Mayor Kennedy.
Thank you, General Manager. I suppose also just an additional at number 7, if Councillor Allgate, when the Health Minister, New South Wales Health Minister was here, he did say that he would follow this up as well, because it actually is impacting on acute beds at the hospital. So if we could also send correspondence to him directly, so he's well aware of the impact that this is having on acute beds at the hospital, being the shortage of available nursing home spots. Happy with that, Councillor Allgate, Councillor Jewett? All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item number 2 is presentation of the 22-23 financial statements.
I'll move that way as written.
Councillor Boland,
Seconded.
seconded Councillor Allgate. Councillor Boland.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. Seems to be the night for finances tonight. Good report. Council's in a strong position. All the staff must be congratulated on a successful year and successful financial statements, and it's got a good audit report at the end of it as well. I think the public, the community will be very happy with these reports. I do note their council is carrying some extra money, which I believe is set aside for our capital works projects that we've got in the pipeline. So that's set aside, and we've got the funds to go forward. So congratulations again, congratulations to all involved.
Thank you, Councillor Boland. Any other comments? All those in favour? I declared it carried unanimously. Item number 3 is Crystal Street tree planting proposal. Deputy Mayor Hickey.
I'd like to move that with an amendment.
You're just
Can you-
moving that.
I'll move the motion.
Different from the
Right.
recommendation.
Yes, yeah,
Yep.
I move the motion. Yes, okay. So I'd like to move that number 1, the Broken Hill City Council Report 231/23 dated November 21, 2023 be received. And 2, that council approve the option one for tree planting proposal in Crystal Street on the Fabtech Proprietary Limited footpath. That the London plane trees, and I won't go through the scientific name, be planted on the verge of Crystal Street from Iodide to Oxide Street. That the trees be planted where there is a required 2 metres from the underground water pipe and 1 metre from the back of the curbing and 5 metres apart, and also 5 metres from any power poles or accessible accesses into the property known as Fabtech and the old Commonwealth Motor site.
Thank you.
Second that.
Councillor Allgate, seconded. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hickey, seconded. Councillor Allgate, would you like to speak on that?
I would. So previously, back in about May, we approved a mayoral minute to grow approximately 19 London plane trees. When they did the potholing, they believed they knew where the pipeline was exactly. As it turned out, they did a lot more potholing before they went to plant them, and found that somebody like myself with a wonky eye must have had their string line a bit crooked, and it varied a bit, and then it slowly comes out onto the middle of the road. So we had to do a change of plan there. They re-looked at it, and it's come back. So I haven't put a number of trees, but so long as it meets the criteria, then put those trees in. But the owner of Fabtech has spent in excess of $80,000 there, these underground tanks and everything, and the trees were previously approved, but it's just the pipeline was in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You were talking something about driveways.
Yeah, there's 2 or 3 actual driveways that are non-usable any longer because they've built a new building there and they don't go anywhere. So they, to me, they should be treated as not in use, and the trees be allowed planted in those
I'll
areas.
just ask to the general manager, does that affect anything? Yeah, or can you designate those no longer driveways? You want to designate, put that in there, no longer be used as driveways,
Yeah.
classified as
Those
driveways.
those 3 driveways that can't lead into the building be no longer classified as driveways. Thank you.
Thank you. Look, I think it's a good outcome. I congratulate the deputy mayor and also our council officers. This is about a council doing what we can to make something work with community members that, without a doubt, will sing council's praises. They know just how difficult this thing has been for the council, and the council, particularly the deputy mayor and our manager of infrastructure. Is that your term now? What is your term? Oh, director, sorry. So look, it's a really, in my opinion, it's a good outcome, and we will fit as many trees as we can there. The owner understands the difficulties, but I'm sure we'll really appreciate the amount of effort put in by all. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Councillor Page. Yep. Oh yeah, you just automatically say, all those in favour: Councillor Gallagher, Councillor Turley, Councillor Brown, Councillor Boland, Councillor Allgate, Councillor Jewett, Councillor Chandler, Deputy Mayor Hickey, myself, and against Councillor Page. Thank you. Item number 4 is the community assistance grants awarded for round 1. Move that, Councillor Gallagher, seconded Councillor Chandler. Councillor Gallagher.
Yeah, it's good to see that we disperse the funds accordingly with the program. It's good. It's a very, very good committee, and it's good to see that we did save 64 cents in relation to the funds, but everything else has been distributed to worthwhile causes in the community. It just goes to show that the council, Broken City Council, does care, and we give out to our community where we can.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jewett.
Yeah, I just want to say these grants are obviously vital to the survival of a lot of groups and organisations here. I was just wondering, I did have a question, if the panel does have a requirement where the generosity is maybe acknowledged by, say, on uniforms, like proudly sponsored by council, or a signage in certain areas that council has provided grants for.
Councillor Gallagher, you like this? I can respond, but I'll get Councillor Gallagher to respond.
Yeah, what we normally do is have a day where we present the checks to the community, and they do get recognised that way. But I'm sure the mayor's got a little bit more input to that.
Yes, you're talking about the Guernseys.
Part
Soccer
of, yes.
Guernseys. Yeah, I suppose part of the conditions should be that, like any other sponsor, that their Guernseys actually acknowledge the Broken Hill City Council. And also, so the two soccer clubs there, one asked for Guernseys. Part of that would normally, every other sponsor would be named on their Guernsey. So I think that should be a condition of the thing. If you would add that, councillor.
Yeah,
Gallagher.
I'd like to add that there, and I'm sure that the soccer groups that did receive it would be only too happy
Yeah.
to put
Yeah.
that sponsorship
Yeah.
on.
And
Sorry.
I would say the other thing that's probably pretty important in that, particularly soccer again, where the donations for the barbecue, there needs to be visible signage around that area acknowledging council's sponsorship. All other organisations that do sponsor the soccer are acknowledged around the soccer grounds, and I think that the amount of sponsorship, particularly that you as chairing that committee has given to that, and that's been a number of, there's also been tractors, but this is an actual area that has been talking about that there be appropriate council signage, acknowledging council's contribution there.
Yeah, I'll move that. Then we also put that as well as a signage around that barbecue area. We will recognise the Broken Hill City Council.
Is that all? The balls as well?
That was there was only one concern that I had. I thought it was great, but I did see that the grant for almost $3,000 of training soccer balls did seem excessive, and maybe, just in my opinion, a partial grant may have been more suitable.
Yeah,
Unless
again,
there's
we need to get the
Yeah.
if it is going to happen, we need to get the recognition from those, because that would probably account for about 100 balls. Yeah. So they need to be acknowledged, because that would be in all grades of the Celtic Soccer Club. Councillor
Yeah,
Sterling?
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wondered, we used to get attached the applications to these reports, so we could see exactly what people were asking for, what was the requirements. Could we not reintroduce that so we could actually, all the other councillors that aren't on the committee could understand, the consideration?
Yeah, it's actually on the hub, and so those reports are written in detail. The concern that putting them in the public document is there's a lot of personal information within those reports, things like bank accounts and other things in there, but councillors do all have access to those.
What can
Right.
you, maybe Lisa
And
can
an
send me an
email.
email and tell me where it is after. Thank you.
Yeah. You're happy to accept those, councillor Chandler, those amendments? All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item number 5 is a local traffic committee meeting held on Wednesday. Councillor Brown, like to move that? Councillor Brown, seconded. Councillor Jewett. Councillor Brown?
I think it's fairly
Yeah.
clear, Mr. Mayor.
What I will
Yes.
say is that there has been a considerable amount of positive feedback coming from the community about some of the things that are being passed there, particularly the changing to from no parking to no stopping, I think it is, in different areas, which allows you change no parking to allow drop-offs. So Councillor Deputy Mayor, you'd like to speak? Just if you could pass it on to the Traffic Committee, Councillor Brown, because there has been a number of positive comments made in the community.
Yeah, the ladies that would pull up outside the credit union, they were very grateful for the change of signage there. They just thought it's excellent that, they feel safe doing it now. So thank you.
And so a lot of it is the drop-offs that are so much more important. People don't want to park there, but they want to be able to pull up and drop off, and it does make a big difference to all those areas. So wherever you can do it, because it really results in extreme positive feedback by so many people. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item number 6, the action list. Councillor Gallagher.
Yes, move that way.
Thank you. Green. Too much yellow.
Too much yellow there. I like it, but at least we're getting through it.
All those in favour, seconded, councillor Brown, you'd like to speak on the action list?
Yes, I had a question.
Hey?
I had a question.
Yep,
On one of the
no,
items,
yep,
yes.
yep.
Just through you maybe to the general manager, just curious to know if there's been any progress with Crown Lands and that REIT proposal, because the rate we're going, it's going to be, too late to do it.
I think the general manager will be happy to respond.
Sorry, thank you, Michaela. Sorry, the proposal.
The solar array, the land for that.
Yes, thank you. So we have been meeting with Crown Lands quite a lot around the those areas of concern. We have got another meeting again this upcoming week with Crown Lands around arrangements for multiple parcels of land within the city. The solar array is one of those parcels. The other are around the housing, which is the south of Broken Hill, and a few of those other parcels. We're still moving through them quite slowly. What we've done in the meantime is, as councillors are aware with the Renewable Energy Action Plan, is actually gone back to the consultants, and I've asked them to look at the second option as well, which is the rooftop solar, and making sure that we're going to consider both options again. If the Crown Lands proposal is going to take too long, we're going to be make it cost ineffective to council. So we should have a proposal that will come back early in the new year there for council to consider both the costs and the timeframe moving forward with Crown Lands, but also what the other option looks like with rooftop solar. Thanks, Mayor Kennedy.
And also probably the land options.
Yes, and the other land options as well. Sorry, that just slipped my mind there, the Mayor. We have got some other parcels of land that we are looking at within council's owned assets as well for that other for the actual solar array, which has gone back to our consultants as well, and that is going to be some of the vacant land that will be formed out of the Warnock Street redevelopment once we have that put in place with the master plan, as well as some vacant land on Memorial Oval as well, and looking at how we can have split sites for those solar components. Thanks, Mayor Kennedy.
Thank you, General Manager. Councillor Turley, you had a question as well?
No, it was actually after this. Just you said to remind you about a motion for
Oh, yes.
councillor Adams.
Yep.
So I didn't want to,
No, we'll do that now. So if you'd like to move that motion, councillor Turley.
did you want to put the action list first or?
Oh, yes, sorry,
Yeah,
I'll
sorry.
deal with that first. All in favour of the action list? Carried unanimously. Councillor Turley.
That council congratulates Christine Adams on being the winner for the New South Wales Government's Individual Excellence in Crown Land Management Award for 2023.
And acknowledged on council's Facebook, social media.
Yes, that would be great, and we
Thank you.
acknowledge that.
Seconded, councillor Brown. Councillor Turley, you'd like to speak
So-
to that?
so can I just say this is such an outstanding achievement for a Crown Land manager, not only in Broken Hill, but in rural Western New South Wales, to be recognised with the excellence in management of Crown Lands. And I know that her committee are particularly proud, but I think for Broken Hill, one of those crowning tourism achievements, but historically looking at being able to preserve the collection of the railway, the history of the railways, without Christine and her constant efforts to retain funding, to have a vision, to collect everything around you, certainly it is a great achievement on her behalf, and I'm happy to move this motion.
Thank you, councillor Turley. Any other speakers? I just agree. It's a big achievement, and well done to Christine. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. We move on to item number 16, questions taken on notice from the previous meeting. Do we have a mover for that? Move councillor Jewett, seconded councillor Boland. You'd like to speak to that, councillor Jewett?
Just to say, I don't think the response is any different than the response given on the night of the question being asked.
Yeah, so I do have some questions for councillor Turley on this matter. The response that was given was, I don't think that I signed anything. As councillors will be well aware of some of the documentation they've just recently received, and that is that the document for the exchanges of contracts were signed on the 31st of August 2016. The council elections were on September 10, 2016. So Councillor Turley became the mayor in September 2016 on the 10th. In that documentation that councillors received, councillors would be well aware there's no motion to sell that property via private treaty. It was sold for between $450,000 and $750,000 below the reserve that council had voted on. That was signed on the 31st of August 2016, which was actually caretaker mode for council. The most that could be spent at that time was $150,000. This was $1.155 million. Councillor Turley was not the mayor at that time, but when the transfer of sale of the land on the 22nd of November 2016, you were the mayor. You signed a document to transfer land that it was never a resolution of council. It had been the exchange of contracts that happened on August 31, 2016, outside the caretaker time, but you signed a transfer land that should never have happened. Your response there is you don't believe you did. Well, you did, 22nd of November. Why did you do that? And why did you not bring it to the attention of councillors that contracts had been exchanged on the 31st of August, and then you transferred the sale of land without really the authority of the original signatories, but without really the authority of the mayor to transfer it either?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. So just to state, when I was asked the question last week, I checked my notes for September. I checked my notes for October. I didn't check November because I didn't expect to find anything there. I welcome the GM's comments that he circulated and recognise that the contract was signed, the money was paid. What document obviously came to me was actually the transfer of land. It was nothing to do with the sale of the land.
Sorry,
It was
did we
actually-
not
sorry,
read? Sorry, no, I'm speaking. I'm speaking. Stop, please. I'm speaking. The transfer of document was, and if you read the document, it says from council solicitor, where can we transfer the money and then sign the transfer, councillor? Not the other way around. The money wasn't put in there, then you transfer it. You got received documentation on the 22nd of November that stated where would you like the money transferred and a signature of transfer once you received that. That is what's written there. You transferred the property that belonged to this community, and you need to explain not only to the councillors here, you need to explain to the Broken Hill community why you transferred the Shorty O'Neill village at between $450,000 and $750,000 below the recommended agreed value, which was well below what other people had said it was at the time. Why you signed that over without any indication to the councillors?
Mr. Mayor, the contract of sale was signed on the 30th of August. The papers that I have not seen the report, I've just seen an email from the GM. The papers that were presented to me was about the transfer of land following the payment from Eureka. I can only tell you, as I can say to every councillor here, the information provided at the time was what I took. The contract of sale was already done months beforehand.
Could have been stopped. And not only that, councillor, you were the mayor at the time. To say that And as a mayor, that is the most insulting thing I've ever heard to this community, that you could not stop it. You were a councillor at the time. Not only were you a councillor at the time that the previous mayor signed that, you were part of a majority council. I cannot believe that you'd be in this room and saying that in front of this council and saying to the general public that you transferred land that belonged to this community at 750,000 below the value that it was valued at because documents, contracts had been signed. I'll ask someone who knows, once you've signed contracts, can you refuse?
Yes, you can just hold it, stop the sale, and it would go through solicitors. There'd be claims against you and everything, but it certainly could have been stopped. It didn't have to be transferred.
And it didn't
right
have
up
to
till
be.
settlement.
It didn't have to be. And worse than that, from the report, it was done without approval of council. This council or the previous council, or the council before that, did not approve the transfer of that land, did not agree to sell it by private treaty. And you, as the mayor at the time, transferred the land. It is terrible. It is terrible that we now don't have the Shorty O'Neill village. They're charging more and more for the people that live there. It's going up. They're now separating water meters, which means they'll be able to charge for independently for water, electricity. It's gone from reasonable cost of $300 plus per unit. They should have been in the hands of council. And it's shame on you as the mayor for not coming forward and saying, look, this process should never have happened. It was signed during caretaker time, which means that the then mayor had no authority to sign it. Neither did the general manager. You were the mayor, you transferred it and you sat on your hands while it happened. And now the community are much worse off for it. And that is the fact. And I would hope that everyone knows, including the councillors, this is not the last we're going to hear about this, because this is not good enough that an asset of this community changed hands without a resolution of council and it's been buried for 7 years. Well, it's not going to be buried any longer because it's going to be made public. It's going to, and as far as we can, we will get any investigations that are required to find out who was in the wrong, who did what, and make someone pay. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And can I also ask that it was the practice of the previous of the Mayor Winston Kai's council, and we weren't a majority. There was only 3 Labor councillors on that. But
3 Labor councillors. Sorry, Councillor Turley, what council are we talking about?
Councillor Kai's council.
You had 3 councillors.
3 Labor councillors.
3 Labor councillors.
So it was always the practice of the former general
Councillor
manager.
Maureen Clark wasn't a councillor.
Not then, no.
Councillor Branko LaCour,
Was a councillor
councillor,
then, yes.
Councillor Jim Nolan.
Oh, actually, 4 councillors, sorry. My apologies, Mr. Mayor, because I know how
And
to
who
apologise.
else caucused with you?
So who?
Councillor member Peter Black, I believe. So you had a majority.
Peter Black wasn't there then. Was he? Yeah. Can I just say that I thought he finished in, anyway. So I thought he resigned from council before that, before then. So, but can I just add that there had actually been constant updates of emails from the former mayor and the general manager to councils to keep him informed. Perhaps we could get them as well.
Well, no, hang on. So now you're saying that you're happy to have broken the rules.
No, I'm not saying that,
Do
Mr. Mayor.
you not understand there's a caretaker mode and that
I
the
didn't
contractors
do
wouldn't, so you were kept up to date?
So, Mr. Mayor, I'm asking.
Maybe we do need those emails that we are kept up to date, and maybe some of the private emails might be worth a little bit of a look at.
We're
as
always
well.
happy to look at people's private emails, I guess. It's a public documents. All our emails are public documents. So, but I'm just saying that those decisions made, given the information today, is the best information that was given today. It wasn't given at the time.
So,
So-
so you've been a councillor since 95 and
Again,
you don't
Mr. Mayor.
understand that,
Again, Mr. Mayor,
you don't understand that caretaker mode kicks into about 40 days or 28 days or whatever it is
again,
before the
Mr. Mayor, I
council
didn't
meeting.
sign those documents.
You signed the transfer.
That was
and-
in
And
November.
in that document that is sent to you, it says the contracts exchanged on the 31st of August. That is 10 days before the election, councillor Turley. You didn't know that it was 10 days before.
I didn't sign that document, Mr Mayor. It was a former
You were
mayor.
given the information that the documents were signed outside of caretaker mode, which
Today.
means,
Today we got that information.
can you get up the?
Today we got that information. Is
You
that
got
correct?
that, it was sent to you. I'm pretty sure it's addressed to you, the correspondence from Andrew Booth to the general manager, and then you asked to sign it.
I haven't got that document. Clearly there's
It was
documents
sent
that
to
have
the email,
gone.
wasn't it? Yeah, 22nd of November. Further to our report on exchange on the 31st of August, 2016. Did you not read your correspondence on the 22nd of November, 2016?
Mr Mayor, I think we all recall what was happening back in
What I
for the
recall,
sale of-
what I recall, councillor Turley, is that the community now is way worse off because a previous mayor, two previous mayors sold an asset that was so important to the city without going through the normal channels. That's what I know. Councillor Page.
Yeah, just a short comment that I did approach Peter Black in regard to putting a stop to this sale, and the response was he wasn't prepared to do it. And I approached Winston Kai and with a delegation of past employees at the Shorty, virtually begging to not get rid of the Shorty O'Neill Village. And the comment was wanted nothing to do with aged care. It wasn't a council responsibility. And it's very disappointing and heartbreaking to see that we don't have it under our umbrella.
Councillor Page, and you'd remember at the time the election was fought on that. You were running as mayor. That was one of the platforms you run on. It was one of the platforms I run on, and another platform that another lady ran on. Conveniently for the council at the time, the contracts were signed on the 31st of August before we had the opportunity to defend against it, councillor Page, and then transferred on the 22nd of November without you and I knowing. Convenient. I think you'll find that's what that is. Councillor Holgate.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. This is undoubtedly a very serious matter. When I asked the question for information about the reasons why Shorty O'Neill Village was sold, going back, I think 2 meetings ago, I did so on the basis knowing that there were lots of unanswered questions. Yourself, as a councillor at the time, and myself, we fought tooth and nail to try and save Shorty O'Neill Village, and we failed because of the majority. It was really everybody against you and I. And the thing is that since then, Winston Kai on Facebook accused me of moving a motion to sell them, the Shorty O'Neill Village. I attempted on Facebook to explain what I did, and I'm sure he knows exactly what I meant. What I moved was that any sale of the Shorty O'Neill Village would be by public auction. And the reason I did that, I wanted it to be out open, in the open and transparent, and the people be accountable. That was the reason I moved that particular motion, because there were very, very strong rumours circulating in Broken Hill, not just within the council, but in the community, about who might try and get hold of Shorty O'Neill Village. So I wanted to make sure that if the village was going to be sold, and it was clear that it was going to be, because eventually the Labor Party made that decision, that it be by public auction. And Mayor Winston Kai at the time, plus the general manager at the time, they have to accept responsibility for a lot of what's happened, along with the movers of the eventual sale. But I've always believed that there was never a decision made. It never came to council to make a decision on the fact that it wasn't sold by public auction. It was sold later under a private treaty. And that, I don't recall that ever being discussed by the council at large. And that is something that is a serious error, apart from the fact that it was in a caretaker, the council was in caretaker mode, which makes it illegal anyway.
So right, councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Kennedy. Just reviewing, obviously this has been ongoing for a little while. And just reviewing through Wayback Machine, you can check out, you can look at the archives of the former Barrier Daily Truth when it was a daily paper, and there's lots and lots of articles in there about one of them on the 31st of December 2013. Labor defends position on Shorty O'Neill Village. Pension Association's disgrace with Labor's position on Shorty O'Neill Village. It goes on and on and on. So I find it hard to believe that the council at that time, especially the Labor, the 3 or 4 in Labor, didn't have an understanding on what was happening with Shorty O'Neill Village. And then obviously it went through to being signed over during caretaker and then completed under the new tender once the elections had taken place. So obviously information should have been checked. But certainly looking at this public archive that's freely available to everyone that has an internet connection, that Labor certainly wanted that village sold, and there's probably 30 articles on this archive that states that way. So it must be asked. Obviously, it was Labor's position to sell that.
I'd say without a doubt, councillor Boland, not only was it the position, ultimately it was done without a council resolution and without the authority of council, and done without the majority of the new councillors even knowing, which was very disappointing for the community and very disappointing for this council. Councillor Turley, Councillor Brown,
Oh, sorry.
no, Councillor Brown.
Yes, just a couple of comments. First of all, in response to something that Councillor Allgate says, there was a public auction, as I recall, and there were no bidders. And it was different. The property market was quite different in those days. You couldn't sell property, and that was one of the issues, that nobody wanted to buy the Shorty O'Neill. The other thing that's been missing in this discussion, and it wasn't included in the reports that were circulated for the last meeting, of the minutes of meetings from around that time, were reports relating to the reasons why council came to the very difficult decision to sell the village. It wasn't. I mean, if it had been, and to read those reports that were selected, to respond to the request for information, you'd wonder why a council would sell something that's making a couple of $100,000 a year. I mean, that would be complete madness. But the fact was, it was a losing money hand over fist, and it was putting council at severe risk of damages from all of the things that could have happened to the staff or the residents. It wasn't fit for purpose anymore with the change in ageing in place, and for those reasons, it's all right to say this is a precious asset, but it was not. It was a significant risk for council. It was a financial risk, and it was a risk to the residents that it wasn't originally designed to serve. And the intention always was that it would remain as an aged care, as a facility serving the aged in our community, but not to be a council run. I mean, it was something that certainly brought a lot of angst. I don't know why you think we would expose ourselves to that kind of negative public comment without good reason. It certainly hasn't. I think I've been looking myself at some of those reports detailing the facts about the situation which led to the decision for council to basically get out of aged care. It might be interesting, and I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, that this is we weren't and we aren't the only council to make that decision, I think, and Councillor Turley would probably have more information about this. I know this a similar situation has almost led to Kiama Council, going broke basically because of the problems they had with their aged care. I don't know if it was the same as the problems that council experienced with Shorty O'Neill, but it's certainly a very severe situation that I believe that they're only just sort of getting themselves out of. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Look, bed licenses are already sold. What this is about is it went to auction, it was passed in, the council resolution of council was to put it out to auction with a reserve price between 1.6 million and 1.9 million. It was passed in. Without another council resolution of any kind, without a new figure put in, it was sold at private treaty without any council decision, no public input whatsoever. I can tell you I'm sure Councillor Page didn't get the opportunity before the council meeting to come here and stand in the public gallery and say, hang on, now you want to sell it at private treaty at 450 to 750,000 below the value you received, market value appraisal you received. Councillor Boland, I'm sure, would love to argue against some of the points Councillor Brown made, as he's read about 30 articles, many of them people saying how terrible it is. Would you like to quote some of the things in there, Councillor Boland? Some of the comments made at the time while this was going on, not hindsight, not someone else's memory on what happened. These are quotes done at the time.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Kennedy. It was kicking our elderly people out. How did the council let the facility get in such a disarray? It used to be one of the top-rated facilities. There was plenty out there. There was the Pension Association was particularly vicious to the Labor Party, and I'm guessing the Pension Association, a lot of them would have been lifelong Labor voters, and they were absolutely distraught what was happening. They were wondering what was going to happen. There was quotes, as Councillor Allgate said, about it being sold off as FIFO accommodation and things like that. So certainly, as I mentioned, it was Labor's policy, and it doesn't matter that it was passed at auction. You still just can't go out and sell it without a motion of council because
the market might be terrible.
Yeah, market might be terrible. How about if we looked after it to start with? It wouldn't have got to that state. And the articles go way back. There's online articles back to 2007, and that was an award-winning facility that was just let to run down. And quite frankly, it was probably let to run down. So all of a sudden to councillors, it looked like a good proposition to sell. If it was run correctly from the start, it would have been fine, and it would have been still in council's possession now, and we would have been looking after our older people in the community, as Councillor Page is very passionate about, and certainly fought against this, I believe. So it's to say that it wasn't Labor's policy or it was passed at auction. So what? It was passed at auctions. It doesn't mean go out and just sell it
without approval. Councillor,
yeah, even worse.
Well, I think you've clarified what I said, Mr. Mayor, but just want to reiterate, it wasn't sold by public auction. It was put up for public auction and the reserve not met. And then sometime later, it was sold by private treaty.
Without approval.
Without approval.
Move on to all those in favour. It's just to receive and note the report. All those in favour. Carried unanimously. We move on to item number 17, questions for the next meeting arising on items. Do we have any questions for the next meeting from any councillors?
Sorry,
Yes,
Mr.
Councillor
Mayor.
Turley.
I just wondered, there was a comment made about taxi services to the airport, and I note we now have Uber and we have family taxis or something, but there was a tender for a bus service to the airport. Can we have an update on that for the next meeting?
Yes, we can. The general manager has spoken to a few people. Any improvements there? No. But we will, yes, thank you, councillor Turley. Nothing at the moment, though. Any other questions?
I do have one, and
Yep.
maybe the general manager, I'm just a little bit concerned about our motion about the tribunal and our submissions, and whether the tribunal itself needs us to write to the minister asking for the terms of reference of the tribunal to be more inclusive, to review councils not having to set their own fees. Because I know that that was one of the issues in the past, I think, when the tribunal visited Broken Hill. And so if we could sort of inquire about, do we need to actually ask the minister to include that in the terms of reference of the remuneration tribunal?
Thank you, councillor Turley. General manager, right with that. Yeah. That's 17. We move on to 18. The second public forum session, 15 minutes duration, will consider submissions from the public regarding matters that were considered by council at this meeting only. Speakers are allocated 2 minutes. Do we have any speakers from the public? Mr. Cools? Yes, thank you, councillor Cools, Mr. Cools. Look, it won't affect council's budget, but what it will do is affect the people that work there. So we get our mine rates and they're divided up so we divide it up and council will decide whether to put that onto the remaining mining companies or not. But what would hope happened is that there is a buyer for that, so it doesn't come to that. But what council is also going to do, and they'll do it by the next meeting, is to send off correspondence to state and federal governments to try and fast track Cobalt Blue and other manufacturing mining enterprises in the area and free up as much regulatory red tape as possible so that we don't lose those miners from the district. So council will work with the state and federal governments to try and make sure that all the processes are hurried up so that there can be work come available for those miners in the area, and council will then look how they redistribute rates as not to go down. You happy to answer that, councillor Brown?
Yes, certainly, Mr. Mayor. There was nothing in councillor Turley will, maybe refresh my memory. I can't recall that really buybacks weren't discussed in this, but it's my understanding that the buybacks are voluntary buybacks.
Yeah. So they're Commonwealth buybacks, Mr. Cools, and what they are is, so the people that are happy to hand over and they get paid a considerable amount of money, probably well above, well, in the past it's been above the market value. So, but what actually happens is, so the buybacks are never really that effective because there's an over allocations of licenses within the basins themselves. So you actually have to buy back a lot more licenses to actually reduce the amount of water. So those Commonwealth water holders, which are the ones that have it, they can call on the water and they can allow a certain amount of water to flow past without it being touched. But they don't get the full license because there's more licenses than there is actual water. So what's happened? You're happy to answer that, Councillor Brown?
Yes, I
Yeah.
think that was one of the points that was made in this presentation. Yeah, it sounds good that the metering's become compulsory, but it isn't actually happening.
So what's actually happening, Bob, is they're actually done a lot of the metering on small properties. Deputy Mayor Hickey will let you know. What was your license?
Oh,
You can
Yeah,
explain.
I've got 3 meg of water just for domestic use. And they've written to me and they've threatened me and all sorts of things about not having a meter. But all the blokes with thousands and thousands, they haven't got meters. And yet they want to come and pick on a few little, I couldn't use 3 meg if I tried on my lawns. Yep.
So it's the ones down here in the Murray Basin with small allocations. So they're able to say 90% of people have meterage, but they're actually small properties, 90% of people, but not 90% of the water. Councillor Brown?
Yes, it's the ownership of water is becoming more and more centralised, so that they're very big players and very influential players too.
Yes.
And they're the ones that are getting away with it. And it is, it's killing the darling. And it's really it's still happening. And we need to be aware of it. And that's precisely the reason for wanting to make this report.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Bob. Yep, Mark. We want to go over. Do you want to use the microphone just so it records on the tape? I think, is there one in there? No, one in there. You have to go over there.
I was out at the airport on Monday I went to the cafe and us Kios girls from the hospital had lunch out there. And as I walked out, it's nice lawn, and I hope with the airport going to be done up, they do something about the gardens in between the cars, because there's grass this high out there, and it looks awful for people who come to our town to walk out and see dead grass and no garden there. All the sprinklers are there, but I don't know if they work. But that was out, and that was 3 or 4 girls of the kiosks were committed on that.
Yeah. Yep, for sure we can pass that. No, well, we don't need to pass that on. We've got the general manager here. Look, what was disappointing about that, council spend hundreds of thousands of dollars with grants. Problem is, grants are good to get and do work. The problem is having the staff to maintain them. So what's actually happened, and we had a situation not just recently where we were talking about doing all new stuff, which then means we would have less maintenance work, which means further get behind. So one of the issues out there, council spent a lot of money putting in those sprinklers, palm trees. If everyone remembers, it looked really nice. But the problem is costs to maintain, or actually it's not even a cost. Council just doesn't have the manpower to continue to do it. But the general manager will take that on.
Yeah, even if
on
they put
and
something
pass
in
it on.
that's cactus or
Yeah.
something that doesn't need a lot of water, it's something green when they walk out. At the present time, it looks like no gardeners have been out there for a long time because it's grass. Is that tall?
Thank you. Any other speakers? Yep, Mr. Moody. Yep.
Well, on behalf of Patton Village and the Jobson family, I'd like to sincerely thank all of you councillors and your council officers for your undying support in naming that premises the Fred Jobson South Community Centre. My sincere thanks to all of you.
And thank you, Don. If you'd like, Don, you might want to bring up one more thing, Don, before you go. It might be a chance to put council under the pump to change our crest. Put that on the, once you mention it, it goes on the, I'll mention it for him. So, what Mr. Don Moody is really passionate about is not only the renaming of the Fred Jobson Hall, but also to change council's crest back to the 83 council crest. I just would like it just minuted because I think at some stage council really does have to address that issue. It was a crest that we could all be proud of. It was a crest that the community could be proud of. It would normally, Don would normally have his jacket on with that crest, but he didn't want to show me up tonight, so he didn't wear it. So it's now on the record that we'll look into that. Thank you. That brings that to end. Confidential matters nil, and that is conclusion of the meeting at 8:16. Thank you, councillors.